Alright people, welcome back. Let's try to do this. I'm a little bit tired, but we're gonna do this nonetheless. I made some notes. I'll put some shit down over here. I do hope that it works with like the recording of my screen. It should be on the screen right now. And we are going to do that dynamically. We are going to start at 006. I don't know how to... insane shot again. This shot against the sky, kind of, where we do have really an insane amount of sky in there, and the sky itself is imposing on Nadeko herself, and she's feeling almost pressured by it, if you wanna, if you wanna go by that. And then we do have a moment a couple of seconds later. I wanted to point that out. Reference, probably a reference to NadeMonogatari with the basketball field, right? I mean, it might even be the same basketball field because it was back when Kanbaru was in middle school. So, Numachi Roka stuff that was happening back then. So it might be that even. And then we kind of talk about her making, like, her clone making trouble, and she's like, what a troublesome being she is. She's just like me, right? Equating herself to somebody who is troublesome, who is making trouble for other people, which first of all is putting herself down, but on the other hand, kind of acknowledging how much, like, how similar her quote-unquote past selves or her creations, her Shikigami, are to herself. Great stuff in general. We do have this little picture over here, which I wanted to point out. Amazing asymmetry due to the entire thing. She's standing at the gates of the school, but she's on the outside, right? She's on the outside of the gate. She didn't take a step in yet. She's contemplating. And we do have, on the one hand, this side of the screen, the side where she's standing, feels very cramped, right? Very, very much plastered by concrete, and a lot of it seems very restrictive, while the other side, like the parking lot with the trees and whatnot, seems a lot more open, right? And the sky, which has kind of the clouds that all whirl around her in like almost a circular whirlwind, kind of empathize this picture that we have of this particular shot right here. And she's standing at the precipice, at the threshold of actually stepping into this little problem. I do love, as they're going in, it almost looks like old, like, it looks so amazing, right? Almost like an old Japanese newspaper or yearbook. I think I've seen that before, right? Like old yearbooks being like stylistically oriented on that, and we do have amazing, not asymmetry but symmetry in this case, and two people going right down the middle, the entrance, the little profiles on the right side of that. Continue part A, and then we start the intro. Interlude right here for the fucking intro. Interlude right here for the fucking intro reaction. An intro analysis, because we're gonna do that. We're gonna kind of just dive into it. It's not much, but we'll look into the intro. Next one. I do love how this is stylized, kind of like the Nadeko parts in NadeMonogatari, where we do have her trying to seduce Araragi, and the stylization of the backgrounds, kind of like with the glittery stars and whatnot, it feels kind of like that. It's been a while since I've watched that, so it's possible that I do misremember, but I do think that is kind of how it was presented back then. Also, we do have kind of a shaft staple right here. I wanted to point that out because this is something I noticed. Characters turning their head in a way in order to kind of almost like into the camera when remembering something or realizing something, or even just kind of reciprocating something, or some kind of playing the ball back when it comes to conversation. Oikura does that later in the episode, so that's a very interesting thing. Also, the general setup of this is like we do have flirty Nadeko actually being in the school, so the question is, what does that represent in our story? And I was thinking maybe that what it represents is that she wants to be more outgoing, right? That she wants to be more dazzling and extroverted and popular in school, right? And that she wants to be the center of attention, but also in a way maybe it is the exact opposite of what her fears are that prevented her from going to school all this time, which is that all that stuff is still standing between her and her classmates, or her and her school in general. And she has this desire, this idea that her sins in quotation marks could just, or the incidents that happened could just be washed away by her charisma, right? By her just stepping up and being like, hey, what's up, people, right? I understand everybody, I'm good with everybody. And this is how easily it could go in the end. Also, Hachikuchi backpack. super neat reference here, right? We do also see the Tsukihi dress. Next moment in time is, I love these little comic book art style kind of things. We see all kinds of different drawing styles here, and it kind of underlines this theme of Nadeko actually being really into comic books and manga and everything around art, surrounding art, right? We have shot 309, which is shortly before that, right? This amazing, like, glistening and sharp with shadows, and we turn around. Also, the very next scene, we see the phone booths that we did see in Nadeko Medusa when she was calling Araragi. And suddenly the snake came out of the phone. We do have an emphasis on clocks or clock-shaped things, right? Time is running out, could be kind of in a way, right? Or we are time sensitive. We need to get ahead of this whole thing. Amazing dialogue right here, where you do see like a little bit of a clarification. Ogi saying, you shouldn't cut yourself apart from the Shikigami by saying my former self. Maybe former self is the wrong way to interpret that, right? Maybe this is like just the wrong way to see it. And we had a moment later on that I'll shortly mention when it comes to this, but where maybe we've been seeing this and contemplating this and thinking about this in the wrong way, and we should be seeing these Shikigami of Nadeko that she created more less like the past versions of herself and more like idealized versions of her current self, because they are, as Ogi says in just a second, the byproduct of her creation, her current creation, and as such Nadeko emphasizes this as well. They might be in a way her current self, right? Parts of her current self that she takes, right? Aspects of herself that she takes out, and she's like, this is a part of me, and this would be the idealized version of that part, right? The extreme of that, because this is how she draws these characters. Like, of course, we know that from in terms of like, when it comes to creating character, oftentimes characters in manga or anime or whatever, they're stereotypes. They are extreme versions, extreme characterizations of something that would occur in reality, right? Or extreme things or concepts or characters representing extreme aspects of our own selves that we are trying to process and also kind of just play around with as authors, as creators. And this is what we could have here. At 416 here, we do have this scene of just, reminds me a lot of Ovari Monogatari episode 1-2, where Araragi and Ogi are exploring the classrooms, like peeking inside of the classroom, even though like the classroom doors have similar shapes and sizes. It's interesting that we are then introduced to like, right, Flirty Nadeko as like this. These shots are insane, right? We're peeking through the keyhole, basically, and then we are seeing all of these aspects of her, right? The bangs that are drawn back, the eyes that are welcoming, kind of, right? The lips, the like the playfulness of like the way she moves and all of that. We're focusing on these aspects. Also, the very interesting, the starry eyes, which I think we have that in just a second. Yeah, right here. That reminds me kind of one of the scenes of Hachikuchi in Mayoi Snail in Bakemonogatari, where we express this as well, but in like a smaller picture. I think like in a frame where she is not the only one in the frame. Very interesting how they managed to replicate what previously was already established in Bakemonogatari and similar titles that are way back, and they do it very well, in my personal opinion. We also, throughout the entire scene, we do have this very bright light, right? We do see very bright light shining from behind and from directly where the other Nadeko version is coming from. At the same time, we are in a dark hallway together with Ogi, right? Ogi and Nadeko are standing in this dark hallway and looking towards that bright light of the outside that is kind of almost blinding them. And I think this is one of the things that she's also kind of empathizing in one of the later, just a couple of seconds later in the dialogue, where she says like, she's an unbelievably fabricated Nadeko, and kind of, if she had to describe it closer, it's like she makes her jealous. She's envious of her. She's too bright. She's blinding her, which is giving credence to this entire idea of losing sight of the important stuff, right? Losing sight of your goals, of your whatever, because you're tunnel visioning so much on this ideal version of yourself, or on this comparison point. Even if we go like, let's say we're going towards like social comparison, if we have people that we compare ourselves with and we see all of these deficits that we have in comparison with them, and as such we are blind to our strong sides, blind to our actual goals. Maybe even there are things about other people that make us so jealous, so envious that they have these things, that they can do these things, that we lose sight of what we actually want in life, because this thing that we've seen that we're envious of might not even be what we're primarily striving for in our life in general. We do have, shortly after, we do have this insane Ogi speech where she's like, if I was happy right now, I wouldn't make an effort to chase my dreams. That phrase is likely one truth, but she says one truth, and that is very important, because you have dissatisfaction, gripes, you have hopes and dreams. If making your dreams come true, if making your dreams come true, meeting your goals, moving up in life, becoming more powerful, and being satisfied are your objectives, whether you stop playing and give untiring stoic effort by tossing out everything you have, or you live a lax, lukewarm life, it would ultimately end up with the same result. She says that ultimately, sometimes if we make the effort to reach a certain goal, or if we live a comfortable life that makes us kind of satisfied in the moment, both of these might result in the same lump sum of satisfaction, right? But she's saying that this is transitory, it's temporal. It is something that is gone away after a moment, or rather, like it's limited in its time, the satisfaction, either way, because and this is like the right, lukewarm water will someday cool down and become cold water. It might be good for you now, but you can't hide the anxiety you feel towards your future. What she's saying is this idealized version of yourself is a version of yourself that hasn't gone through the processes that you have gone through, right? Your current self. Because you, amazing shot, by the way, with the hand, you are the future of this version that you see of yourself. You are this version's future, and it feels anxiety towards that future. And that can't be hidden forever, right? It might not be bubbling up on the surface right now. It's slumbering deep within, but it's not something that goes away if you don't pay attention to it. And this is what Ogi is saying. Yeah, you could be outgoing, whatever. You could try all of these things, try to be dazzling, put out your superficiality, whatever. But you're kind of ignoring the incredible development that you went through in the process, right? You're losing sight of the progress you made as a person because you are kind of envious of the things you might have been able to become without realizing that you can just integrate that within yourself, right? Find a way to do both. Find a way to step up from the person you are right now and continue your development. At least that's how I see it, right? Current Nadeko, who is chasing her dream, may seem even more brilliant, right? Because you're chasing your dream. You're not just being popular with people, right? You're not just being in the moment and comfortable, right? You're not just comfortable and satisfied. You are satisfied in the activity, not right now, but in general, in the activity of chasing your grand dream. That was your dream as well when you were in this state of your Nadeko, right? It was just buried deeper within. And the interesting thing is that we see right after that she's looking down again, right? The gaze onto her shoes. See that immediately, right? This behavior of intrinsic, this behavior that she had before as well, right? When shy Nadeko and whatever, she was looking down, always looking down, putting yourself down, not looking people in the eyes, not confronting that brightness. Yeah. And she's saying this Nadeko could become something really dangerous. We're gonna skip over the sketchbook because we have talked about this, right? The way like the paper and the 2D and the 3D, we talked about this in the previous discussion. It's all pretty nice. And Ogi's saying at the moment this is still just a newborn, right? It's not as self-aware. It's just a concept that is acting out its programming, that is acting out its nature. But when it becomes an oddity, it's gonna be a real issue. It's gonna be a real problem, especially since it came from a god, right? That is one aspect of that. And also because it has the inherent capability and potential to become something very dangerous because of its nature. So there's maybe a little bit something important about nipping the thing in the bud, right? Before the plant grows out of it. Otherwise, you might have a thicket in front of you with thorns and whatnot that you might have quite the trouble to actually cut down to size again. And we move forward, right? The little reference to the OP number 2, and that amazing shot, the tilted angle, right? The moment of truth, right? The moment of decision where everything is maximally tense, right? We do have tension building direction going on right here. And she wants to do it. She's taking the step, right? We're taking the step, but we are, in the last moment, we are thinking these things, right? There is this moment of truth coming where she's like, I'm the real one, she is a fake, right? And then she's asking herself, but maybe it would be better if the fake was the real thing, right? She's taking the step back. She does have that these schemes inside of her head, these prototypes, like these cognitive thoughts about herself as being something in deficit, something that is not worth putting out there, which is one of her core issues. Interesting, very, very cool sequence where we do see her twirling around and a seamless transition into another scene of current Nadeko falling, which is super amazing, right? The parody that we see here. While she is thriving, the other one is being put down, and now she's lying on the paper. Another amazing thing to like the way you use that in terms of like visual metaphor and whatnot. And she's sinking into the abyss. She's being swallowed by her own self-doubts. But then we have the interruption. Suddenly, red screen. Everything is in red atmosphere. Everybody panics. Fire alarm is being put. And then we have an Ogi shot, which is fucking amazing and also looks kind of really... Well, first of all, we have the shadow on the wall, but second of all, I don't know if anybody else feels the same way, but Ogi looks very much like Araragi in this shot for me. I don't know what it is, but it feels very Araragi to me, this shot specifically. Reminds me of like the early days Araragi. I don't know why. all of the chairs, and we're going in. There's one scene that is very, very funny, but also very cool, right? We have that short moment of animated suspension of them just being absolutely goofy, but then we are going into an animation sequence that is absolutely beautiful. A slight smudge, and we're fucking running the bike through the hallway and through all the levels into the camera, which is super fun and super amazing. Also, I talked about that in the original discussion, but did something bad happen to you or something? Stealing all the fucking lines right here. But this also could be a hint that she might be connected to Oshino here. That being said, there's another reference later on where Ogi is like, I'm gonna look for my, like, you take my bike, Nadeko, I'm looking for my own transportation somewhere else. Where I'm kind of like, I don't know why, but I'm thinking, oh, could that mean that, right? Could that be a hint that she's like colluding with Araragi? That is also a thing that I'm kind of, that spooked around in my head for whatever reason. It felt like that. But yeah, let's continue with that. Yeah, we're in familiar places, right? I do remember that place being especially prominent when it was like interactions between Nadeko and between Hachikuchi and Araragi. These green rails here. We do have like this is when I was thinking the interesting idea of like the past self being idealized versions of my current self. Also, very important that Nadeko is taking responsibility right after she's saying this is a big responsibility for her. When Kanemaru is on the phone, she's like, let me explain it to her. Which I do feel like a Nadeko of the past might not have done that. The only time she ever did that was, I think, on the phone with Araragi. Other than that, she never really took the initiative and was like, come on, let me, right, this is my business, I have to do this. And we're kind of realizing that Nadeko, like shy Nadeko, is going around with the head brow. It's very funny, the joke where the kanji are slowly sliding on either side. And she's like, you have a future of me ahead of you, right? And she's in the parentheses, which is, I love how they're playing with these perspectives and all that shit. Also, we do have, like, interestingly enough, we do know that this is not Tokyo, but nonetheless, we do have her walking around Shinjuku and Tokyo Tower in these shots. Wait, yeah, right here, we do have, this is Shinjuku, right? The big crossing, and this is Tokyo Tower. For fucking real. Just random Japanese landmarks. Yeah, I think it's interesting that we are maybe looking at a visual metaphor, or, yeah, I mean, like, semantic metaphor here when it comes to shy Nadeko being exposed, right? The interesting thing, because that is the antithesis to what she is. She is the one who hides behind her bangs. She's the one who hides behind her cute attitude, and she's now the one who is being mostly exposed in her nature. So I do wonder what we're gonna do with that later on, with that contrast going on thematically. I think it's interesting that Nadeko is relieved, right? Feels joy that she can act separately from Ogi. Maybe a little reference to like her discovering the joy of being a more independent, self-responsible person, but at the same time, I do feel there's some other connotation to it that I'm not perfectly picking up on. Yeah, then we are going to Nashimiro Park. Nashimiro, right? No. Namishiro Park. Shiro as in white, although I don't know what Nami means in this case. I don't think I've ever heard Nami in the connection with Snake, but I might be wrong. Probably it has been explained originally when we talked about the name in Ovari and whatnot, but do let me know what Nami could mean in this specific case. Either way, I do know Shiro is white, and it's a very familiar locale. We do have the video game references, by the way, which I absolutely appreciate always. But yeah, we have Sodachi coming in. I do love that. She's absolutely good. Look at her. She's fucking beautiful. And we do have various very interesting shots like this one, where we, again, this is what I said earlier with like the head turning towards somebody when talking to somebody, realizing something, memories and other stuff happening. But we do have also kind of the point of view of being dragged, which is very cool, very interesting. Sodachi has her own issues. She doesn't seem to get along in college all that much. She's ditching her responsibilities, which kind of reminds me of Mayoi Snail, right? When we do have the Lost Cow arc, where it's like Aragi's ditching his responsibilities or getting away from a place where he feels kind of out of place at this point in time, and so he's seeking loneliness, kind of, and getting lost. Which kind of feels to me like this is Oikura in this case, because she's kind of lost as well, right? She's seeking a direction to go into because she feels like she is not, like she doesn't belong to the college like she's going to. Also, I find it very interesting when we talk about these concepts, and it's like, you don't know Senju, and she's like looking to the side and it's like, I do know her, and then she's like, we almost killed each other. And I'm like, this is once again, in my opinion, Nadeko has been doing this occasionally, and I've noticed that she is kind of over-dramatizing events, because we do know that while Nadeko wanted to kill Senjo and Araragi and whatnot, we do also know that Senjo would have never been able to or really wanted to kill Nadeko, right? Or confront her. So we almost killed each other sounds like a gross exaggeration of what actually happened, or at least like very much a biased view on these things, a way to euphemize it almost, right? To talk nicely about it, right, and avoid tackling the core issue. I do also find it very interesting that Oikura or Sodachi likens changing your image to changing yourself. I think I disagree fundamentally on this front. She says she failed because she wasn't able to change in that regard, and specifically talking about changing your image, right? Because this is what we were talking about, and I think that is wrong. I think changing your image is not the same as changing yourself, and she expresses herself that she wants to change as a person, but at the same time she said she tried to change her image in college, which in my opinion just shows that she's kind of failing the assignment, because as much as a mask is obviously a part of yourself, and I'm not saying that your mask isn't a part of yourself, as much as that's the case, I do believe that inventing another mask is not changing yourself. It is not working on yourself, it is not developing, it's more just adding a little part to yourself that might become part of you, or might already be part of yourself, right? Something that you want to put out, but changing your image and changing yourself or developing are not the same thing in my opinion. So maybe she's missing her assignment. I do love this shot. It's another top-down shot. The interesting thing is, in this specific case, it doesn't feel like the sky is oppressive. And I think that is mainly due to how Oikura stands, right? How she presents herself to the world, while Nadeko is more like looking down and being very anxious, being very tense. Oikura is more like chest out, right? And more confident, even though she talks about her own failure, which is very interesting. So it feels more like she is the imposing thing in the shot, rather than the sky being the imposing thing. She thinks Nadeko is being bullied, and Nadeko, as a result of that, like clearing it up, she pretends to be an exhibitionist, which is like absolutely the opposite of what she would be. But yeah, it's super funny. It's super funny to see her like just in order to find excuse, or not excuses, but to just kind of like clear up the misunderstanding that Sodachi has, that she's being bullied. She's actually putting herself into a weird, embarrassing position that Sodachi thinks about her in this way. everybody has a hobby after all. Well, yeah, I mean, I guess that's you now in the eyes of Sodachi. You kind of changed a bit, yeah. You did change a lot, to be honest. But in the past you were a lot more, you know. And it's interesting how sometimes we don't even have to finish a sentence in order for other people to understand what we mean, especially if there's like a commonly shared knowledge base, right? If there's a commonly shared reality going on between us. Sodachi remarks that her exposing something of herself might be a sign of growth. I do kind of agree, right? Being able to open up, right, to share your reality with people is a sign of growth. It's very ironic in the way we represent it now, right, with Shy Nadeko exposing herself and whatnot, but also very relevant for Nadeko because she was always very fake, right? She always just accepted the image other people interpreted into her and was like, yeah, that's me, right? Without really expressing what the differentiator was here, right? What are the differences? What is the details? She just accepted the superficial that people were assuming out of her. Sodachi seeing her time running in circles. I'm not gonna elaborate on that because we talked about it a little bit in the original discussion, but definitely disagree on that. The journey is very important, and going around in circles sometimes has us realizing important things that we need to realize in order to continue on. It's not a waste of time. Very cool, very interesting. She looks down when she talks about not going to school right now. She's ashamed about it. She feels these guilty feelings about it, right? And it lowers her self-confidence talking about it. But at the same time, despite looking down, despite not feeling great about it, she actually talks about it, which is important. It's very important for her. And we do have this heart-to-heart, beautiful shots that we're taking here, and her just kneeling down, right? It kind of like you would like an adult to a teenager or to a kid, talking right on eye level or maybe below eye level, even being like a supportive role kind of type, which is the right feeling to invoke here in this very scene. And she says, not going to school won't end your life. And the way I understood it, right? At first I was like, yes, maybe that's not the right message to send. But at the same time, I did, of course, kind of in the back of my mind think the way I understand her complete message is, it won't kill you if you don't go to school, but you might want to work on it anyway, right? And I do love how we're kind of blurring out the backgrounds and kind of making the colors bloom more, right? And kind of increasing the brightness of the scene, because this scene or like this grandest scene in general feels very emotional, very warm, very supportive. And we do have this one shot though where she's like, life won't end at all. I wonder how long this will continue. And I do personally wonder, is this gonna be the moment, or like, is this gonna be foreshadowing to an Oikura self-doubt / even suicide arc, right? Like suicidal thoughts, depression, stuff like that. I mean, Oikura had a lot of issues and has a lot of issues, and she's overcome a lot of them seemingly, for me, right? It seems like there's a lot of growth that happened here that she herself can't see yet. At the same time, I can very well see that down the line we might have an arc of her dealing with all of these things that she's struggling with right now, and she's like, seems to still consider life to be somewhat suffering, and maybe sometimes yearning for a timeout. Not even going as far as saying an end, but more saying just maybe a timeout, like a phase where I just don't have to deal with all of this shit, which I can feel hard, right? Like this is a mood for me. I have times too where I'm like, bro, let me just sleep for 2 months and then wake up, because I don't want to deal with anything right now. And this is like just you feeling overwhelmed with your own issues, with all of the stuff that's going on. Sometimes there's just an overload. And that's just how it is. And we have to deal with that, right? Sometimes it's good to take a step back and find ways to kind of relax and to calm yourself, but that's not always possible. And yeah, we definitely need to keep that in mind and kind of just try to try to take our pauses when we can, but also realize that it's gonna be easier at some point. It's gonna be better at some point. It's also gonna be worse at some point. It's just how it goes, right? Life's a roller coaster ride, but that's how it is. And it's not always gonna be bad. I think it's good that we're clearing the things with the parents up, right? That we are kind of talking about this this kind of conundrum. Interestingly enough, that the parks from above looks kind of like a clock. Very cool imagery right here. Oikura kind of reminiscing about the past and kind of acknowledging that maybe what she's been doing wasn't the ideal thing to do, right? The interesting thing is that at the same time she accepts who she was. She's like, yeah, this is how I reacted. It's absolutely understandable, and I accept that aspect of myself, right? That past aspect of myself. At the same time, maybe it wasn't ideal. And even what I'm doing today, which is kind of partially still what I did back then, just maybe to a lesser degree, it's not ideal. And we talk through it and we're like, your parents might not have meant exactly what they said. And that's just the reality of life, right? We don't always say what we mean. Sometimes we're saying it wrongly. Sometimes we're trying to express it in a way to get the person we're saying it to act a certain way. Sometimes we're just lost and we don't really know what to do, and we're doing the first thing that comes to mind. Either way, what we wish for the person, it does not equal the things we tell them, right, to do. And we need to kind of parse that through and realize that sometimes if somebody's saying something to you, that it comes from a place of wanting you to get to a place that you are happy with as well. Yeah, don't take the face value of their words as absolute, and make sure you see them for who they are, right? And this shot I felt like was so symbolic for who Nadeko is and how she acts with the outside world, right? Being very drawn into herself, right? Almost in like an embryonic kind of posture, looking up at the world that is too bright, too right, almost blindingly bright in her eyes, but also sitting kind of in a cage, right, in a round cage, and looking to the outside and getting these glimpses and talking to people through the cage. And she got to break out of the cage at some point in time, right? She's gotta face that brightness, and I'm sure that once she does face it, she's gonna shine bright herself. But it takes more than just one step to get to that point. What we say is not necessarily always what we want, and I think that's a take-home message right here. 1945, the dialogue we had right here. You feel like you're doing everything they tell you, but what if the other side is thinking things that aren't going the way they want it to go? There's no relationship that can be sadder than that, right? Talking to one another but not understanding one another's intention, right? Misunderstanding one another. Putting one another on paths that go in the wrong direction. Not on purpose, but, right, accidentally. And then you do have this dysfunctional communication going on. It's very important to communicate, to understand what other people want beyond what they're saying. I think it's very interesting that Oikura felt like this is her going, right? Very warm scene again, I love that. That her talking to Nadeko really helped her for her own problems, right? Sometimes we need that. Sometimes we need to help other people solve their issues, right? Go through their problems. Help them with problem solving in order to gain a new perspective, or maybe, right, go through different processes of thinking, and then maybe we understand ourselves and our own issues a little bit better. Maybe we can find new solutions for what we've been struggling with all this time. happens all too often. Also, the last thing I'm thinking, this beautiful shot of her like kind of looking down, but not looking down in a meek kind of self-deprecating way, but more in a like, I'm being comforted right now way, right? Feeling ambivalent, right? Feeling anxious, but also at the same time receiving that care, receiving that support, and actually feeling it. That's what it expresses to me here. All of these shots of Oikura are so beautiful, and she's, by the way, the way she's dressed, right? Amazing style, right? Really, really cool. And we do show fucking real life footage. Interestingly enough, real life footage, it kind of mirrors exactly what we see in the anime. So it's like there exists real life locations that this is based on. Holy fucking shit, what? What? I do remember, like, this is the scene where Kanbaru ran right behind Araragi when they met for the first time in Bake, and then she jumped over him, right? This is exactly those rail lines, in my opinion. And this is like the overpass that they talked on. So yeah, we're showing like real life locations kind of matching what the series was showing in the past. So that's also some insane referencing and cool Easter eggs. And we arrive at the Araragi household, and what's to come? I don't know, right? I don't know. Shy Nadeko in makes sense, right? Because her past self, right? Also her child self being a lot involved with Tsukihi and Koyomi and playing with them as children. So this is like a kind of a place of comfort, but also a place of confrontation. And this is this place that she was running around, right? That she was avoiding, that she didn't want to confront, but now she does, because also it kind of means security, and she's exposed right now, which is also another layer to this, I think. But yeah, I think that's about it, right? That is NadeMonogatari or Nadekodra episode 2. We establishing the plot, we keep talking, we keep introducing new characters, which is super amazing. Everything could be analyzed so much, right? You have hours upon hours of possible, like, I talked about this shit 50 minutes right now, and before that I talked like 20 minutes in like the reaction discussion. I don't know, man. We're gonna talk about the intro in a separate video, and I'm gonna probably record this in just a bit, but yeah, that's been the discussion. I do hope you enjoyed it. If you did, like and subscribe to the channel, right, to see more. I'll be seeing you next week, and yeah, have a good one.